President of the Socialist International, Secretary General, President of the Socialist International Women, members of the Presidium, Socialist International delegates and PRD comrades, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this kind invitation, and above all, thank you for the warm welcome I received. The question would be, why are we socialists? Because we put it in the name of our parties. Because we get excited when we hear the international. Because our flags are red and has the fist and the rose in its center? I don't believe so. We are not socialists because of any of these reasons. We are socialists because we defend freedom. Who doesn't defend freedom? It doesn't matter if he belongs to a party that calls itself socialist, that dresses all in red and screams socialism out loud. It doesn't matter, because what we must never forget is that we are socialists because we defend freedom. Socialism is freedom. Almost a century ago. Almost a century. A century ago, a great Spanish socialist, a professor named Fernando de los Ríos, traveled to Moscow to see firsthand what was happening in the revolutionary Russia of the time and had a long conversation with the leader of the new Soviet government. Fernando de los Ríos explained what the Spanish socialists wanted for Spain, which at the time was a backward, undemocratic, and an impoverished Spain. The socialists, said Fernando de los Ríos to this Soviet leader, wanted freedom. And the leader of that country looked at him in surprise and asked him, freedom? Freedom for what? And Fernando de los Ríos did not hesitate to answer him, freedom to be free. Freedom to be free. Whoever opposes socialism and freedom, whoever responds with bullets and prisons to the desire for freedom and democracy is not a socialist, he is a tyrant. And therefore Venezuelans today must feel the backing of the Socialist International. They have to feel that their struggle for democracy and freedom is the main purpose of our political parties, and therefore we will always be with them. The Nicaraguans must also feel the encouragement of the Socialist International, our same fraternity, with their hopes for democracy and freedom for Nicaragua. There is no socialism without freedom, and the people are not protected from themselves. They are protected by letting them express themselves in freedom, liberty, and also equality. Freedom and equality continue to be our hallmarks, and will always be so. Never one without the other, never one before the other. The extreme left is bent on equality at all costs, even if freedom has to be sacrificed in order to achieve that equality. And the neoliberal right is bent on freedom at all costs, even if that means creating absurdly unequal societies, such as those we are seeing across the length and breadth of our planet. And what is the result? That neither the former achieve equality nor the latter achieve freedom except for themselves. Freedom and equality are socialism and are non-negotiable. Friends, for a Spanish socialist, visiting Latin America is always a very special experience. And in particular, to come to the Dominican Republic. A lot binds us, commercial relations, historical and cultural ties, but above all, we are united by affection. And I don't want this to be a rhetorical statement, but a true confession of affection. Jose Marti used to say that everything has already been said, but every time things are sincere, they are new. My party, the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, celebrates nothing more and nothing less than 140 years of existence, and it celebrates it from the government. Less than a year ago, some were saying that the Socialist Party would never return to the government of Spain, that socialist parties are in decline in Europe and in many other parts of the world. But this is not true. When the Socialist Party was founded in 1879, there isn't any doubt that things were certainly very different in Spain and around the world. There are some things that have not changed and that force us as socialists to continue the struggle. By the end of the 19th century, 2 industrial revolutions had transformed the world. There was a paradigm shift on all fronts. In just a few years, the horse, the post office, the oil lamp gave way to the train, the car, the telegraph, and electricity. Manual laborers, artisans, and peasants were overshadowed by factory workers who worked tirelessly in miserable conditions. The world then, as today, was divided. There were those who, riding on the wave of material progress, driven by science, technology, the new organization of labor, confused their individual prosperity and saw the future through the glasses of their euphoria and demanded that workers, peasants, and the marginalized resign themselves to the suffering and exploitation. Inequality, they said, was a necessary toll that should not be paid too much attention because it was the cost that we all had to bear and suffer for development. Such were the neoliberals of those days, and the same goes for those of today. On the other hand, there were also those who were horrified by all the changes that endangered old class privileges, and who, only grudgingly, gave in to their demands. They were the ones who wanted everything to change so everything could stay the same. Such are the conservatives of our days. There were also those who wanted to break institutions and rules, those who wanted to achieve welfare and protection in exchange for freedom. They were the ones to whom that old Spanish socialist, whom Fernando de los Rios mentioned earlier, taught the uncompromising and non-negotiable value of being free. But there were also us, there were the socialists, there was social democracy, socialists who fought for the dignity of labor, for the rights of all citizens, who demanded the right to vote, who demanded gender equality, who demanded work rest and living wages. Socialists who stood alongside unions to strengthen the power of workers, promote a fair distribution of wealth, uphold dignity in employment, and actively work to reduce inequality. Those were us, the socialists. We were correct then, as history has been demonstrating throughout these last decades, these last centuries, and we are still correct now. Socialists are still those who defend what must be defended, which are the universal principles left to us by the French Revolution: liberty, equality, and fraternity without dogmatism. And I say it here today at the Socialist International, and I also said it a week ago at the Davos Forum, where the most important economic powers of the planet meet. Socialists, social democracy, progressives, we are the only ones who are responding to the new challenges of the new world and the change of era we are living through. We are the only ones who are proposing the need for a new social pact that guarantees the continued creation of wealth, the advancement of rights, and the end of exclusion. There lies the 2030 agenda, there lies the call for multilateralism, and ultimately there lies the commitment to putting the economy at the service of the people and not at itself. If we ultimately look at macroeconomic charts and investment rates, but do not look into the eyes of our citizens, we will not get things right. As the 20th century entered into globalization, politics distanced itself from the economy, which led to the consequence of 2 world wars. In the 21st century now, it would be irresponsible to ignore the political impact of the economy. This has been the case during these great years of recession. The blindness of finance and the anesthesia-free remedies of misguided austerity have created unbearable inequalities. And these inequalities today, as then, take refuge in technological change, in scientific change, to demand resignation. The status quo is also the status quo of an energy model that destroys our planet, with seemingly technical arguments where they try to impose, in short, the old argument that this is the way things are and nothing can be done against them. But much can be done. It is possible to make the welfare state, for example, sustainable. How can a welfare state not be sustainable when we have societies that are much richer than they were 70 years ago when the welfare state was put in place? They lie with numbers. They deceive with slogans, but that is what we socialists are here for. As I said before, the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party has 140 years of history and therefore has a memory, as does the Socialist International, which was also born in that context. And since we have memory, I have no doubt that we have a future. Socialists must see the great opportunities without hiding the risks of development, the exclusions of the changes that the new digital revolution and globalization bring us. Socialists must strengthen societies through collective values such as tolerance, freedom, equality, cohesion, and respect. Collective values to address these challenges in the changing times. To be aware that progress implies that we all advance and that no one is left behind. Friends, we are in a change of era, in a new thread, in a new time. We have gone through a tough, very tough economic crisis over the last few years, and now we have the obligation to open an era of progress. We have lost a decade, and now we have the obligation to recover another decade. The new globalizing impulse of technological change has brought more fear than hope to large segments of the world's population that we aspire to represent. This has had a clear political translation in governments and leaders who use this fear to implement regressive, reactionary, and authoritarian political agendas. To take away, to eliminate the rights and social conquests that we social democrats lead to a great extent. We see it, for example, in my continent, the European continent, with particular harshness, where next May, the Socialist project faces crucial European elections. In these elections, we will give, have no doubt about it, everything. Our battle will be against fear, uncertainty, and resignation. And, of course, also against lies. A battle to address and transform progress into one that benefits everyone, leaving no one excluded. Comrades, 140 years ago, the future was perceived as a place where things would be better. Now, however, the idea is repeated that the next generation will live worse than the current one. The world is richer and more prosperous, but we cannot think that our children will live worse than we do. That is our challenge as socialists, to restore hope in our own transformative capacity as free citizens and as democratic societies. To restore dignity to millions of people who feel abandoned and at the mercy of political, economic, and technological processes that they don't understand and are beyond their control. To propose and forge a new social pact that combines old desires with new challenges. And for that, we need to look straight ahead and confront the various flaws that will shape this new era. We have spoken of technological change and globalization as fundamental factors, as fracture lines between the past and the future, between involution and progress. And we must take into account three other points that will define our agenda. We are clearly facing a demographic change, a challenge that forces us to reformulate the distribution of wealth so that these welfare states are sustainable in the present and in the future. I am aware that the reality in Europe is different from that of other countries whose socialists are here, but the challenge is similar. Some of you have to put those protection systems in place, and others of us have to find ways to make them sustainable and more effective. Secondly, we also face an immense challenge with the ecological transition, which the Spanish government has made one of our top priorities. Climate change is a reality that only those who live in the nostalgia of their happy Arcadia or those who deliberately lie can deny. Socialists must rebel against those who oppose the economy and the environment, competitiveness and sustainability. And thirdly, we are living through a feminist revolution that we must embrace with full conviction. No project can be called socialist if it does not fight relentlessly for the equality of half of the world's population with respect to the other half. And that is not identity politics, it is basic justice. The 21st century, I have no doubt, is going to be the century of women. And in Spain, I have to tell you, in Spain, I want to express that we are very proud to have the government with the most women ministers in the OECD. Let's strive, please, to make this no longer news and to have many more socialist governments make us feel at the forefront of a just cause, which is gender equality. Therefore, around the key issues I've mentioned, climate change, technological change, demographic change, globalization, and feminism, revolves the immediate future in which we socialists have much to say. Let us say it out loud, in all forums, in our parliaments, in our municipalities, without rest. Earlier, comrades, I told you about the old Spanish socialist who went to Moscow, Fernando de los Ríos, a socialist who defended a humanist conception of socialism. For him, it was necessary to combat an exclusively economic and mechanical interpretation of human life. We are men and women who dream, who share our lives with others, who have fears, who have doubts. I invite you to persist in that look of that old Spanish socialist, Fernando de los Ríos, in that ability to see the human being behind every number, every figure, every algorithm. I come from a country, Spain, that has known the pain of war and the pain of exile. Today I am in the Dominican Republic. Tomorrow I will be in Mexico, a sister country that was the homeland of so many expelled Spaniards, as was our beloved Chile. Latin America has always been a land of refuge and hope for Spain, and as socialists we must keep that memory of solidarity alive every time we need to address migration, another phenomenon intensified by the negligent disregard for inequality and the brutal error of tyranny. Speaking of the Spanish Civil War, Albert Camus, the old Algerian and French poet, said that it was there that his generation, and I quote, "In Spain, in the Civil War, learned that one can be right and be defeated, that force can destroy the soul, and that sometimes courage is not rewarded." Many times this has happened to all of us here. We were right, but our courage was not rewarded. However, in my country, in Spain, reconciliation, democracy, and progress have also been known and have been known. A success in which we socialists were and are fundamental. If we do things right, comrades, if we have reason on our side, if we do not lack courage, and if we commit ourselves to the task with emotion, we will improve the world. Let us not give up on these words, on improving the world. More than a century ago, socialists from all corners of the world founded the Socialist International because they believed that dignity was inherent in every human being, regardless of country, race, sex, or creed. That message, in my view, is more powerful and necessary today than ever before. And it is our responsibility, each and every one of us, to fight for it. It seems to me, dear comrades, that there is no more worthy cause. So go ahead, comrades, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to address all of you.